You may be seated. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. This Shabbat, we celebrate Pride Shabbat, which we do for one Shabbat every June, both as an expression of our welcome and our allyship and our acceptance of all genders and sexual identities in the shul, but not just because we celebrate this only today, but because this is the month of Pride, and so we want to acknowledge it here in shul also. And so in our Torah portion this week in Shlach Lecha, we read the story of the spies who scout the land of Israel before the Israelites enter the desert. And the question that I want to ask about the Torah portion this week, in light of our celebration, is what has always been in our text that we were never taught to see? And the question here is of deeper looking of what the spies might have seen or not have seen. Many of us are familiar with the story of the 12 spies who are sent to scout the land of Canaan. 10 of them come back to say that the cities are fortified and the people are giants and we are grasshoppers. But 2 of them, Caleb and Joshua, say that the land is good. We can do good. Don't be afraid. There are many lenses to view the story of the spies and the sin of the 10 spies, but today specifically I want to focus on their gaze. 10 spies borrowed somebody else's gaze and made it their own. They saw themselves the way they imagined a giant would see them, and then they believed it. This question, whose eyes you see yourself through, it's not incidental to our tradition. It runs through how the rabbis understood gender and the body from the very beginning, and it continues to be the center of academic Jewish studies on gender and the body, which, if you want, we'll learn more about at 1 p.m. today. One Hasidic teacher that we learn on Wednesdays, the Sfat Emet, reads a single phrase of the story very closely. As Caleb and Joshua try to calm the panicked Israelite people when they return, they describe the Canaanites with a strange image. Sartzi la me'alehem. Their shadow has departed from them. In plain terms, they're saying, the protection over our enemies is already gone. There's nothing shielding them. But the Sfat Emet hears something larger, a teaching about fear itself. The power that makes a thing look impossible, he says, is often only a shadow. It has no real substance. The one who looks closely sees there's nothing behind it. Caleb and Joshua looked and saw a shadow already lifting. The 10 others looked at the very same thing, and they only saw giants. And the Sfat Emet points out that our Parsha ends the story of the spies with a mitzvah that Greta spoke about earlier, the mitzvah that is also familiar to us of tzitzit, the fringes of the corners of our garments. After all of the grief that the spies set in motion, the Torah gives us this cornerstone mitzvah and tells us to look at them, uritem oto, and tells us to not go scouting after our own eyes. Velo taturu acharei einechem. The same verb that was used in the sin of the spies is the verb that's used in the mitzvah of tzitzit, lator, to scout or to seek out. The spies went scouting and saw only surfaces. But tzitzit is the daily discipline of refusing to stop at the surface. It's a thread on the edge of our clothing that says, what you see is real, but it's not the whole of what's here. It's only a symbol. The same eyes that saw terror and bad things in the land of Canaan are the eyes that can see the holiness in every single thing we do. The spies' eyes were never the problem. It was stopping at the surface. And the end of the Parsha, tzitzit, are our daily reminder to look further. The rabbis already knew that the body does not tell the whole story. They knew this almost from the beginning, and they built it into their laws. Some of us might be familiar that the rabbis recognized more than two genders. They knew about the tumtum, a person whose body could not read simply as male or female. They knew about androgynos, a person who was visibly both. Those weren't curiosities at the margins. The rabbis even have a midrash where they picture Moshe as both God's wife and God's husband. They were not troubled by a body that exceeds the binary. The more challenging question is, where did the rabbis think that these bodies belonged? And they never answered that they belonged at the margins. They never tried to diagnose or fix. They asked, how can we count these people in the larger body of Israel? A midrash teaches that the first human, Adam Harishon, was created androgynous, not male then female, both at once from the start. And since the Torah says that humans were made in the image of God, the midrash quietly says that the original person was already beyond the binary. The Talmud teaches that Abram and Sarah lived most of their lives as tumtumim, neither simply male nor simply female. And how does Rashi explain the miracle of Isaac's birth? That God reshaped their bodies so that they could become parents. It wasn't despite their bodies, it was through them. God reached in and remade Abram and Sarah so that the life that they were meant for could come true. Our bodies are not a costume to be thrown away. Our bodies matter so much that God will remake it into line with the truth of who someone is becoming. That's not a soul escaping from a body. That's a body that's made true. Of one of the spies that saw differently, Caleb, the Torah says, Ruach acheret hayta imo. A different spirit was in him. He didn't have different facts. He didn't see a different land, and he didn't see different giants. He just saw them differently. He looked at them deeply. A different spirit is what queer and trans people have so often had no choice but to develop. The hard-won capacity to look past the surface that the world insists on. To know in the body that the gaze of the giants is not truth about you. To say we can go up when the whole camp has already decided it's impossible. There are people in this room, and countless people before us, who were told that the tradition was not written for them, that they were grasshoppers in the eyes of the text, with no place in the body of Israel. But the rabbis disagree. They do so plainly, they do so joyfully, and they have done so since the very beginning. They did this for Adam Harishon, Adam. They did this for Abram and Sarah. They imagine God who remakes the body in love. They built whole categories for the people the world could not categorize, and then did the patient work of making sure that they counted. A scholar, Gwen Kessler, who was a teacher of mine that informed much of my thinking around this, has spent her whole career reading these texts. And she puts it this way: when queer, trans, and non-binary Jews read themselves into Torah, we lay claim to a vision of Torah bequeathed to the future by the rabbis of late antiquity, which always already stretches toward horizons yet unknown. The tradition was always wider than what we're told. The spies hand us the instructions, and the fringe on our garments repeats it. Lo taturu, do not go scouting after your eyes. Do not stop at the surface level of the text of each other and of yourself. The commandment of tzitzit, lo taturu, it's not just about the fringes of our garments. It's not just about how we read Torah. It's also about how we look at each other. We each are filled with more than our first glances. And that's the practice that tzitzit hands us. Look at another person and refuse to stop at the surface. There's always more than meets the eye. Every Shabbat, but especially this Pride Shabbat, we can't make anyone in this room, in this community or beyond, feel like a grasshopper. We do this by not looking away from difference, but by looking deeper into each person that we meet. Shabbat Shalom.